Hello and welcome to a brand new Unsourced Wall livestream. We're talking about Star Trek: Strange New Worlds season one. The season just ended, and I have a lot of thoughts about these episodes. I've always been touch and go with Star Trek myself. It's a series that I watched here and there. I think the most I've ever watched the series would be, I guess, TNG, Enterprise, because those are on when I was growing up, or any of the reruns or like contemporary. I was watching Enterprise as it was coming out, like as a 5 or 6 year old, not
Oh
understanding
wow.
anything. Yeah, no, like it was that Andromeda. Like, what a time to be alive. Um, um, but yeah, no. So, but since I've tried to dip my toe on a lot of it. And so my friend here, can you introduce yourself and what your history with Star Trek?
Oh hey, hello, from Twitter, Oily Whisper 68. I know, random name. Uh, Basically, I guess as a child, I knew of it. I saw like bits and pieces of Voyager when it was on UPN in between of Simpsons episodes. And I know my mother grew up watching Star Trek TOS in Mexico, and she would tell me about it. But then I kind of always avoided Star Trek growing up, aside from that, because the stigma Trekkies had. But it wasn't until I got to high school, and especially the Abrams movie. The first Abrams movie was the one that got me interested enough to go back to everything else.
Oh, really? All right.
I know that seems weird in hindsight.
It kind of does. Like, I think Abrams movie at that point, like I had watched like a fair amount of like TNG. Like I would watch like it would air like in 2 to 3 episode chunks every day. Like during the time after I came back from school, so I would like watch that, and I thought it was really really fun. Enterprise, again, always in my mind. I always like shot like, oh, people hate Enterprise. He always seems so harmless, but like in retrospect, I kind of see why. I try to rewatch Enterprise, and I can't get through most of season one. But
Yeah,
no, it's rough going. But I think they could bring it back. They could bring it back, and no one would care that much about it. But no, moving ahead. I guess the backstory here is that uh, CBS, Paramount, what have you, is trying to sort of bring back Star Trek. The last couple of years, we've run in, I think, 5 years now, because there's 4 seasons of Star Trek Discovery. I'll come into our third season of the software comedy show Lower Decks, and also I think the second season of the animated kids show. 3 seasons of several spinoffs, and throughout all of that, there's been a kind of like a big portion, a big portion of the fan base. There's different levels here. There's like the weirdos who make like rant videos just to like stir up hate and controversy, just to get like all those that sweet ad bait money. And there's like actual people who watch these shows like maybe they could be better. Maybe they're leaning too far into like the big blockbuster moments, and they're kind of losing that personal touch, because Star Trek is a courting show, and I feel like especially like early season Discovery and Picard currently, they seem to think that like big set pieces are like kind of the way to go. So Strange New Worlds, as it was made to be the stopgap. Um, I personally, I overall, I think it did. Before we go into like episode by episode, I personally think it works for what it's trying to be so far. There's room for improvement, but as like a back to basics, stripped down episodic adventure thing, I think it does a great job at sort of trying to capture the corny campiness of the stories that would have been in the original kind of show, or even like something as old as Enterprise. Just something a little bit more homespun and simple. What about you, Kilo?
I think as user Jerry Monjo put it best, CBS now has their Orville killer. I think that's part of what this was designed to do.
I feel
Everything
like
you did, and then this everything you said, and then also Orville still exists. So
oh,
they
yes.
needed something to directly do that same niche that Orville does.
Okay, so here's the funny thing. Okay, so people have been saying that Orville might be ending this season anyway because of the merger with Fox. This is basically like their last season, because Disney and the parent company won't re up. Like they haven't renegotiated at all with the actors who contract them. Overall, I feel like this show could definitely be better than the Orville. in a lot of ways. I don't think it's quite there yet. Like, for all the stuff, it could be an entirely different live stream about the Orville that we could be doing. I
Oh
don't want.
yeah.
I'm only gonna
Oh
touch on
boy.
it here. I like it. I like it a lot. Even like, at least in terms like in an acting and filmmaking way,
And
or
production values.
production value. Like, it knows what it wants to do visually, atmospherically, stylistically. It's always on point. I think even from the first season, like after like the first 2 or 3 episodes, like you get into like a really fun kind of or even or at least engagingly acted sci-fi Star Trekky stuff. And this, I feel like it's almost there, but I don't know. I don't think there's any episodes so far that I would call better than like the best episode of the Orville. At least so far. But we're talking the Orville right now. There's lots of things. There's lots of things that Orville kind of sucks at. So it's not. It hasn't got.
Mockless. Mockless.
Every Mockless episode is so fucking painful. So like, it's not as good as Orville's Peaks, but it's not as bad as Orville's Pitfall.
Oh yeah. I
I
would
must.
not consider. I would not call any episode of this season bad. And my least favorite, the pilot. I would just say, I mean, it did everything it needed to do, and that's fine for me. Like,
Yeah.
you needed something to do to take the characters from where they were in Discovery, blah blah blah. How does Pike grows a beard, then he's on a horse, then he's in space. Boom, boom, boom.
Also,
And
like,
then and then it can even excuse the January 6th stuff. Like, it was corny, but it's like in terms of like getting normal audiences, like this is our thesis, and it's fine. I'd put it bottom, but I wouldn't call it even. I wouldn't call it bad.
yeah, it's my least favorite episode as well. For all that, like, it just feels. I was shocked when this episode came out. Everyone was like, "Oh, this is a return to a classic episode like Star Trek." And I'm like, "Is it though?" Because like half of this is just cleaning up the mess of Discovery season 2, which is really weird to have to deal with right now, given that Discovery seasons 3 and 4 already cleaned up the mess of Discovery season 2. So I'm like, I feel like it feels like such a regression. Like, okay, after Discovery season 3 and 4 being like really great, I awesome. Like, it's perfect balance between like blockbuster and like actual like heartwarming or these heart engaging stories. And then like, okay, let's just reference stuff that people were trying to forget 3 years ago. Like, I don't know. I feel like
I think a big part of it though is that a lot of people use the ending of the Discovery season 2 as a jumping off point, and then
I
didn't
guess,
look
yeah,
back. I'm
that's
on a
true.
Discord server where like everyone just like they say, oh, okay, Discovery season 3 and 4 are pretty good. I think, yeah, okay, sure, and then they just go about their day. But then they came back for this.
Okay, that makes more sense, and I definitely agree with that. But as someone who's been watching it, mainly to you, because you were like a really big booster for 3 and 4. I have people I don't trust on my as mutuals for me. Um, like they'll like everything. Like, oh, WandaVision is like the most Kino MCU show. Like, and then they're like, oh, but you gotta watch Discovery season 3, and like, nope. And then, but you and me, we disagree a lot. But I trusted you. Like, okay, I'm bored. I can use something to binge. Let's just jump into it, and it was really good. And I fell in love. I fell in love with Discovery. I'm not gonna lie. 3 and 4, like, that's some top tier
Yeah,
sci-fi television.
I mean, getting rid of the prequel conceit. Like, I think that was the biggest thing shackling Discovery is the prequel conceit. Also,
Yes,
the writers being fired every 5 minutes.
yes,
Those
uh,
once you got rid of both of those things, the show was way better.
yes. If you had more of a vision, the characters actually develop, and it's fantastic. But yeah, that was my main problem with the first episode, Strange New Worlds, or pilot, what have you. Um, and yeah, so that would be my least favorite. Is there anything that stuck out to you that you really want to talk about that pilot?
Honestly, just I mean, the only two things I guess that would be the way they do a spin on the day the Earth stood still,
Yes,
because they
yes.
kind of told you how the episode would end, but he did it differently, but without, "Oh, we will kill you if you don't change your ways," which I guess
Yeah,
they kind of had to.
I,
And also,
yeah, go on.
I just thought it was really, really sick when they used the transporter to transport a contact lens directly onto his eyeball.
Yeah, that's the stuff I really liked, and I feel like there's gonna be a couple of listeners where I say, hey, if this had happened a little bit later, if it's still been happened earlier in the episode, and the episode more about that, it would have been a great episode. I'm gonna say that a lot of times throughout when we run these episodes. Like, they waste so much time on setup, and they, I think what works with TOS, and this hasn't really captured yet, is that like there's a very strict like kind of like progression of acts, you know, and this is like all over the place a lot of times. And like, oh, now we're getting into the main plot, and like we're 20 minutes in. What do you mean you're getting into the main plot right now?
Oh
Um,
yeah, because some of them took forever to even get to the credits.
yes, yes, okay. But yeah, I did like the Day the Day the Episode Still stuff. I thought that was really fun. Two on the nose. Like again, all this felt gave me like douche chills. You know, like like this is trying. This is trying, but it's like on the edge of trying too hard. um, but overall, yeah. Least favorite, my least favorite by far. It's only up from here. Let's go on to the next episode. Children of the Comet, uh, which
Uh, I was genuinely surprised to find out that that alien on the view screen was practical. I was kind of convinced it was CGI or partly, but I saw a clip online someone posted from because I didn't watch the After Trek or whatever it's called, the Will Wheaton show.
Ready Room. Yeah, I don't watch
Yeah,
that shit either.
yeah. Why would I watch that? But someone clipped the thing where it's like a guy in a giant mechanical prosthesis where he can't see, and they have to have someone holding his hand while he was walking across the room, or he'd get hurt.
I think I saw it too. That was really. I was interested. They did something. I remember seeing like behind the scenes footage of that as well for when they brought in what's those faces, the mind reading aliens for in Discovery season 2 on the planet, the the deserted one. And they did something similar for that. Like, okay, we got it's really impractical. We're gonna try our best to get this look worthwhile. But yeah, no, that was pretty shocking.
I
I
also
think
like the
that
voice. And also, if you go back, you could tell because like everything's like a mask, but you can see the lower part of his mouth is still there of an
yes,
actor.
yes, yeah. I think this works. I think this got me a little bit more kind of like um optimistic about where the season was headed, because it is just a very classic like okay, like there's the conflict of like cultures here. How do we navigate that? It maybe a little maybe it didn't deserve to be like as long. These episodes are really long for what they are. And I feel like it like okay it's such a classic setup that you if you've kind of seen episodes like before in Trek, like okay this is definitely where it's gonna end. This is how it's gonna end up, you know. So like so you're kind of but there's nothing in between to like really satiate you. So you're just kind of waiting for like okay where's the thing that's gonna come out of nowhere to make to create a common like bond between these between the Enterprise and this alien race that worships this killer comet. What you know, like where, like when's this gonna happen? And then like uh, so that, it's better because it's more contained. Like we see like that they're at least trying to do really kind of classic stuff. But
Mhm.
I was wasn't that engaged. It's probably like my let me see where it's on my list. On my list, it is
It's in the middle.
it's in the middle, yeah. It's in the middle. Like I there's ones I like less, but I did appreciate that it was a classic plot. How be it?
I'd put it also in the middle too, but I also liked I like little bits of it. Like there was them getting in their groove. Like I like the cooking bit where they introduced Hemmer. We introduced Uhura as a cadet. Like she feels younger than either Saldana or Nichols's version.
Yes.
Uh, I like that mustache. She's Sam Kirk is just what's his name, Sam Rockwell from Galaxy Quest, and he
Yes,
just
yes.
gets zapped. I like that the awkwardness of Spock having to sing,
Yes, yes. Oh,
and that the whole thing ended on a note of the galaxy is just a space. The universe is just a magical place we'll never understand. Isn't that grand?
yes,
Which is
that
the
was
kind of note some TOS episodes end, where they just go and they shrug like, I can't explain anything that just happened, but isn't it wonderful that happened? And that Calliope music would play.
yes, and it was like a time traveling meteor that with sentience or some shit. I remember, yeah, that was fun bit. Speaking of her, I like the actress, and I think that she did a great job in all the episodes. But this, I don't think utilized her the best because she was more like a plot device, and it was like the most obvious plot device, you know.
Yeah,
Uh, and I think out of all the episodes, this is the only episode where I feel like it relies too much on prequel stuff, on being a prequel, you know, because I'm saying this knowing that there's actual prequel episodes that are meant to set up like future episodes, in like TOS, and even though this one doesn't, it felt the most like blunt about it because like in TOS like Nichelle Nichols would like burst into the scene, take out the lyre, all that kind of shit.
Mhm.
And this is like Uhura learns that she should sing on the Enterprise, and I'm like, do we need that to be a lesson she learns? I mean, like it's so blunt, you know?
Although I did like the way they tied it into her stuff with Spock, like Spock's, with her learning that she actually wants to be on the Enterprise at all.
Yes,
Like that's the
yes.
one thing I'll give it. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Other than that, again, at this point, now this is
And then some people, I guess, want to make a note. Some people complain that it didn't make sense because of the Prime Directive, but I've always been on the level that the Prime Directive is horseshit, so I
yes.
didn't care
Yeah.
about that.
Come on, they all. I think every captain decides that it's horseshit, which is why I thought like first episode was kind of like we're gonna do this anyway. We don't have to like set it up so much. Of course, like let's just get on with it. Um,
Mhm.
yeah. Other than that, fun episode. It just felt at this point, it was starting to feel really light. And this is when I think Orville season 3. Oh no, it didn't. See, Orville
No,
season
it's a
3
bit further down.
pretty further down there. But
It,
at this
it- I remember because it
Spock
was a
Buck.
yeah, because I remember that was a huge dichotomy where Star Trek had the fun episode, and then Orville had the super depressing episode.
Yes, yes. But I think that's at the point where I had to make the choice, and like I let's go on to the next episode because it becomes why I made that choice. Where I had to switch off. Like I can't handle this much simple Star Trek. At one point, like I could watch Discovery season 3 and Orville at the same time. I don't think I can watch these two at the same time. Like it not enough is not enough. I'm not processing enough. But the next episode, um, I think I should put this up. Let's put this higher.
Ghost of Valyria.
Ghost of Illyria.
Let's see,
Uh,
let me check your list.
I should put this
You
higher.
had it. You put that second lowest.
Again, that was like my first impressions. Like, but now stewing on it, I think I like it a little bit more than Children of the Comet.
Hmm.
Like, it's so close to being like a really fun. Everything goes hell, hella fucking wrong.
I mean, in
Episode.
terms of the everyone goes crazy episodes, it's definitely better than the TNG episode where everyone starts turning into spiders and cavemen.
Yes, yes, you're right. Um, yeah. But I just don't think it went as far as it needs to do with it. Like, if we don't see enough mayhem, usually we see
Oh,
a lot more mayhem.
I like the guy who just he started busting his head on the wall,
Yes,
trying to
yes.
get to the light. Although
Uh,
initially I was expecting it to be something akin to like a parasite that wanted to go into
yes.
the light, spoilers for Metal Gear Solid 5, I guess, like the one, the shining like stars mission where you have to kill all your men. Like that, the thing was that it was a parasite that was attracted to light because they wanted to go out into the light so that parasites would spread into the air. I was expecting something like that.
Right. And oh yeah, and also like there's this short that the guy who made District 9 did as part of like his like what, no one's funding my movies. I'm gonna make my own like shorts on my own proof of concept
Oh
shorts.
yeah, I haven't seen any of those, but I know of them. Yeah,
Well,
go on.
there's one where there's a light parasite, where it's like a light that emanates from like a crystal, and it can infect you by like shining its light in your eyes, and it turns you to a zombie, and it makes you build use your body like it's kind of body horror thing, blob kind of thing. Uh, and it's like I thought that was I think okay. Oh, when they mentioned it travels, you're like, oh, is it gonna do something crazy like that? No, it's just like everyone just gets a little sick, and like okay, it's kind of tedious.
Mhm.
Um, what I liked about this episode, I think, was I think it did a lot better at setting up a lot of the character dynamics than the first episodes did. Like okay, like we
Also gave number one something to do.
yes, yes, it did.
That was basically her episode, so I think that was overdue.
Yes, definitely. I feel like this episode kind of makes her the most proactive that she is throughout the season. Unfortunately, like I can't remember like another big standout moment from her.
Yeah, I mean, she didn't really do anything. I mean, she stayed on the ship in Discovery. I think that was it. Like she provided support, and then she had a few standout moments. And then here, it was more like later on, I guess. Like she just they gave her this one big episode, then she kind of stepped back into the number one rule. But while they put more focus on Spock,
Yes. Um, and this is unfortunate. It is unfortunate, but I think well, again, that's what's the strength of the episode is that you really start to feel like the ensemble cast. Like you have Chapel, you have Mbenga, right?
yeah,
Mbenga, you have Hammer, like you have all these clashing. It does,
that was
even
the
though
moment of the episode for me though, when Hemmer used the transporter to scoop out a piece of the mantle with the intention of hugging it.
yes, yes, that was great. Like, okay, that was like the most outrageous part, and I love that because it felt like, oh shit, there's like dread, there's stakes, and there's not a lot of dread in this episode. Even though like there's like everyone's like at risk of dying, there's not like a point where like, oh, you're feeling the stakes, you're feeling the drama. Like that was like, okay, that's funny, but it's also kind of horrifying. Holy shit!
Oh
The
yeah, because even just opening that, aside from killing himself, you probably have destroyed the transporter room.
exact and the ship, that's a fucking piece of like all that shit. Like, it can only handle so much. Um, and I think like Pike and Spock getting them out of the way was a good idea, but unfortunately we keep coming back to them too much to make it
Because
interesting.
you do kind of have to establish why Spike would be someone that Spock would risk his entire career for,
Exactly, I think that the show does that really well.
especially with that
In
whole
later,
with that idiocy about how going to Talos 4 will get you executed.
yes. Um, I think out of anything, it's the culmination of this season makes that case. Like if you want like the entire season as a whole is like a really well honed prequel from Spock's perspective to the Talos 4 episode.
Hmm.
Everything that happens that between him and Pike is always like so like nurturing, like bonding. Like you're like one of the strongest, most heartwarming, most like courageous people I know, Spock. No one compares to you. Like they're so wholesome together. And like, okay, I understand it. I understand why he would risk like death. Um,
Yeah,
and that
to help this guy. Yeah,
to help this guy. Yeah, why not? Um, okay, so what else? Is there anything else you
also
want to talk
I
about?
like the twist where these like lightning demons were actually good and trying to help them.
Yeah. Um,
Like that, that's like a classic Star Trek twist where the monster is good.
yes. Is also the moment they met, they brought up the parasite. I'm like, okay, so those things are good. Those things are good. I think what really holds the season back is that I'm not. It's harder to be surprised.
Yeah, yeah, because they do. I guess they do also play it up because they do this again later, but the monster's actually bad. So
Yeah, yeah,
I like this one instance where like, oh no, these horrific like CGI lightning beasts were actually trying to help them the whole time. And
yes,
also that the reason they're like this is because of the one real prejudice that the Federation still has,
yeah,
the prejudice against augmentation.
right. Uh, which I think could have been explored a lot more than it is, and that's why I mean more about like
I
focusing on like characters that we know already a lot about. Um,
Yeah, but that's the one thing too, because we know this prejudice still exists all the way up until DS9, where it
yeah.
becomes a bigger spoilers. It becomes a big part of Bashir's entire deal in the second half of the season
All right,
of the series.
I'm gonna step away for like 30 minutes, 30 seconds. I'll be
Dog.
back in. All right. Hey, I'm back. You know you can mute your mic as well.
Oh,
All right. All right. So where were we at?
we were in the middle of Ghost of Valyria.
Right. I don't think there's anything else I want to say. I feel like it could have explored a lot more, given that you have one and Leanne,
On.
Leon, and like they touch upon it so much without actually kind of digging into it. Like,
Although this kind of bring up one of the funny prequel things, where like everyone talks like everyone knows who Khan is, but then later on, Spock will have absolutely no idea who Khan is.
right? Yeah, yeah. I noticed that too. Like, isn't that meant to be like not? It just makes them feel so full. I feel like they really need to focus on characters that are like completely original.
Mhm.
But let's move on to the next episode. Memento
Memento
Mori.
Mori. This one's my favorite of the season.
I like this one a lot. Do I need to change that? I keep
You
saying
had it second. You had it in your second.
okay, good, because I feel like I've been changing a lot of my rankings lately. No, Memento Mori. I liked it a lot. The only thing that kept it from like being top spot is that I had seen this episode done already really well. Because it is basically like um just
It's
no
a submarine episode.
submarine episode. Yes,
it's Das Boot. It's Balance of Terror. It's that
yes,
one episode of Clone Wars with the giant Spider Man.
yes, exactly.
But
And
I think they did it really well. I like the tactics they did, how they actually thought things through. I thought the whole part where they manually just threw out the torpedo was sick as hell. Like the idea of
yes.
just using space like that.
Oh yeah, I thought this was so much more clever than what they ended up doing at the end of the season. Like it was in terms of like what their tactics are. Like okay, yes, no, this I know where it's going, where it's getting at, what it's trying to homage, and the genre standards and cliches it's trying to like really touch upon, and also like okay, this is like really where they're showing themselves be creative
Excuse me. Get back here. Okay. Sorry.
and
Go
and
on.
really and really where they're showing themselves be creative and like okay, this is like really putting their own twist on stuff. Like, oh, okay, these are the characters that are doing this kind of stuff, and I'm a lot more. I know I get a lot more of a well-rounded idea of what they are.
Hmm. Yeah, like you got like the bridge crew all did their stuff. Like they did the like. I think this was probably the best use of Ortegas.
Yes, yes, definitely. Like um, because I feel like for Ortegas, they really don't. Like she's almost on the cusp of being interesting, and I think this is the closest she gets to it. As like
Yeah,
at least as a proactive character, at least.
yeah. Yeah, basically, yeah. I mean, hopefully she gets more to do in season two because they had a
Yes,
lot on their plate this season.
they did. They really did. And
Uh,
fingers
oh,
crossed.
also love the whole thing where they slingshot around the black hole,
Yeah, yeah,
and also of
uh,
course this is our introduction to the Gorn of the
yeah.
season.
I thought that was pretty interesting. And although I have to say, I did not expect, given this episode, I did not expect the later episode of the Gorn.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we'll go into that in. I guess we'll go into that when we get to that episode.
Yes,
Although
yes,
I guess for the most part, I like that we didn't actually see the Gorn, and
yes,
also that the spaceships are unrecognizable from the ones in Arena, which
yes.
makes sense why they didn't recognize the ship in Arena.
Hmm.
Although I will say, in hindsight, having just watched Arena, I kind of wonder if the Metron didn't interfere, if the Gorn would have just done this whole thing with the Enterprise again,
Right.
because it looked like they were going into like baiting them into a trap. They even mentioned it, and then the Metron interfered.
Yes. All right. Other than that, I felt like there's tension, there's stakes, drama, all stuff I really like. I feel like yes, very
Also,
strong episode.
also, I appreciated the very very quick but mention of Michael Burnham.
Yes, yes, that too.
Like I know they're keeping the discovery stuff very very low. Like they mentioned the discovery a couple times, like they had to in the pilot to bridge everything.
Mm.
But they bring up like Michael, of course, would be in the back of Spock's mind,
Yeah, so
and
recent. Yeah.
Yeah, it's still recent to him, and he doesn't. He's not going to be like crying in his bunk about it or talking to people about it. But like, I like the little bit where like Lon gets a peek into his mind, and we go, okay, he still thinks about Michael, and he shuts down the issue, and they move on.
Yes, and I really enjoy aspects of that as well, especially when we get move into something that I'm not quite sure if they're going to really dig into it as much in the second season. But I did like that Drew's introductions, a couple of characters. Whenever that kind of gets unlayered, gets peeled back, you know.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, other than that, like it just felt like a really like a solid like capsule episode, and I really enjoyed that.
Hmm.
Um, anything specific you want to talk about?
See, I mean, just no, just like just little things like that. Like I like just little bits here and there. Like I like the part where the guy gets saved in the hallway and the guy dies. Like that was a pretty good like good sacrifice moment.
Yes,
Just,
yes, yes. Because oh yeah, but they shut down the hatches. The bunkers are kind of getting sacrificed. It's so that was like some intense stuff. Like holy shit, like
yeah, I like that they went like after these episodes they went so dark, and then of course after that they decided to flip the switch, which transitions us into Spock Amok.
Spock amok. You know what? I'm gonna say it. God, I don't like this episode. I don't.
I mean, I think it's very high for me. Maybe my top three, four, but I understand why the humor wouldn't entirely land because it's a humor episode.
It's
With
humor
those,
episode.
it's a humor episode. Humor episodes they either land with you or they don't.
I think it's too corny in a way that isn't executed as well. Like, I can't imagine. This has happened before. I've seen this before. It's just that I don't know. I don't know that much about Spock's fiance, or I'm not that accustomed to like this version of Spock as well. Like, at least at this point, and like it is not. It just feels too kitschy, you know.
Well, I think too, it kind of like there were some episodes of TOS that were like that, like
Yes,
Shore
exactly.
Leave. So I kind of appreciated that they went for they swung for it. That they didn't
Mm.
shy away. Like they said, "Oh, we can't do this. This kind of stuff needs to be left in the past." But I kind of like that they brought it. They tried to do it, even if they didn't succeed in some people's view. I kind of like that they didn't just say, "No, we're not going to do
Yeah,
this."
I like the fact that they're willing to do silly episodes. My main thing is that like with Shortly, right? There's like this really kind of like hilariously understated nature to it. Like, okay, we're on this planet where all this ridiculous like fantastical stuff is happening, and people are like getting murdered, and like we're seeing like castles and like knights
Giant
and
bunny.
giant bunny, all that kind of stuff. Like like okay, that's happening and all that kind of stuff. But like in this, it's like it just feels too much like a modern kind of comedy, like responsibilities.
Right, yes, but I did like how the music just went all full 1960s on us.
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
that was
Like
the music just did not let up, but it was in the very way that was like how TOS just didn't let up with its music.
yes, I appreciate that too. I appreciate that a lot. Um, but overall, I gotta say, it did. Like I said, we said before, a lot of the times when you get Spock episode, it's also about enriching his bond with Pike, and I think this one really made that so clear. And I think, okay, even though this is ostensibly like, oh, Spock's having girlfriend troubles and all that kind of stuff, it's really just about like hammering home and refining and distilling like what Spike and Spock mean to each other. Pike and Spock. Well,
Uh, Reminds me, I really liked his revulsion at having to say the word Chris.
exactly. I think out of like the body swap humor jokes, the only one that I thought was really funny was when they come clean and then Spock's girlfriend is like, and now you can probably all of our differences in personality and mannerisms are clear to you now. Like we barely tried anything. It's been like 3 minutes. So like again, a Vulcan would think that because they take into account like body language, facial language, all that kind of stuff. So they probably thought they were like giving it all away at this point. We're like, they could have held on a lot more. They were
Yeah. Oh
uh,
yeah, reminds me. I did like the bit where the very Vulcan burn when T'Pring is looking at his room.
yes, yes,
Like those
uh,
bits. Yeah.
um,
One thing they find interesting though is the very decision to go into T'Pring at all.
yes, yes. I did like
Like she was in the first episode. They could have left it at that. They could have left it at that. It's like, and then even that could have just been like their distances is what causes her to be so disconnected from Spock
Mm.
that later on she would do what she does later. But I think the idea of like fleshing her out.
It was weird
So
because like
yeah,
in
I
the
know it's very strange, and I'm willing to get. I like this version of T'Pring a lot. I like the actress, so I'm curious how they're going to get to that point where she becomes someone who, I guess, spoilers for TOS, decides to completely betray and try to kill Spock so she can take all of his stuff.
and yeah, in the Muck time, it kind of feels like they have like an arranged marriage, not like
Yeah,
they're like
well, I guess there is some room for it because of the because they say more than less than the marriage, but more than the betrothal, and then they make that little speech when they meet each other, never
right.
parted. So I guess it's one of those things where it's a stretch, and you squint, it'll fit.
I don't mind it as much because like when we get to a later episode, which is one of my favorite episodes of the season, like I feel like you need that backgrounding at least that foundation. Otherwise, this episode doesn't work, and this episode works so well that I can't imagine a season without this episode. Um, we'll get to that in just a moment. But another thing about this episode is that along with T'Pring, this is where we start getting what I think is slightly overdone but workable, like rom-com shenanigans between Spock and Nurse Chapel. And I'm like,
Yeah,
okay, on one
because they had
hand,
to go there.
they have to go there, and I don't mind that they're going there. Like I watch the TOS right now. I'm like, come on, those are like that was they got chemistry off the wang, in those episodes, and so like, okay, I'm
Also,
glad.
also at that point, it was so obvious that even Bones was commenting on it
Exactly.
in the mug time.
Yeah, you made him soup. Like,
Yeah.
how dare you? You're frivolous, scandalous. I'm old century Victorian. That's how Bones acts like 90% of the time. I love it. Um, but yeah, I thought that was really fun. But it's something that feels so modern. Like it's hard to reconcile. With like, oh, it's like how like kind of like touch and go they were in like in Amok Time, and just those one or two episodes where like they had like actual kind of dynamics in TOS, or like in this is like something that like Judd Apatow would write, like it's such they have like a meet cute, they have like a misunderstanding dynamics, they have like all this kind of stuff, like, and it's I, on one hand I don't like it because it's like, you know I it kind of lessens the impact, like okay, it's so standardized, so generic of like a way to write a romance. I don't like, I love rom coms, and I hate when they take cheap and easy shortcuts like that. Um, but on the other hand, Nurse Chapel is just really adorable in the show. And I'm
Oh
like,
yeah.
okay, I can stand it. Like you want to write if you had an actress like this, and like of course you would just write a rom com. You would
Oh
just write
yeah.
a rom
She's
com.
just incredibly energetic. She just comes out in the role.
Yeah, she's you can say energetic. She's got a lot of charisma. She's so like fun loving, all that kind of stuff. So you write. I can understand why it would be a natural leap to write like to write like just these standard rom com scenes and scenarios.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. Let me see. Also, let's see what else. Let me go over. I like to, and then it's unsettled, but I like the whole bit with the how do you say that? Rongovians,
Yes.
you had where in the end being honest, completely honest to them worked, but was what won them over.
Right. Yes. And they were doing that whole empathy thing. Oh, that was so clever. I love that. I love that a lot. Again, it's one of those things where like even though like intelligence is emotional intelligence is more important than like just logical intelligence, which I think is like one of the big cornerstones of like any kind of like Star Trek series. You see it a lot. I think every season just has these big moments like, yeah, these are the stuff that would work, in terms of strategy, but let's just try like just the personal touch, and like okay, I should really put this episode a little bit higher if, but then again I suck the comedy, so like it might still be a
Um,
little bit low for me.
and one last thing, I guess, is that I like the mechanism they did for this body swap was to bring up the idea from a search for Spock that you could put a contract to someone else.
Right. And I guess again that makes sense in a
I
sense in
mean,
a way.
it's basically magic, but you already established that it's been a thing for like 30 years now.
Yeah, like there's always been like this mystical side to the Vulcans that's like always felt a little bit awkward, but like if you're gonna have that, use it. Like I don't question that at all.
Yeah, I mean, you already brought up the idea where Spock put his Katra in McCoy, and it was like having both of them at once. So I guess it like a natural thing to what would happen if you just swapped them.
Yeah, two Vulcans. Yeah.
Yeah.
But other than that, yeah, I think this episode's like highlights is Chapel and the sort of negotiation diplomacy aspect. Comedy, not so much. Let's move on to my favorites of the season. Like the episode that I think is the gold standard. Like this is just a straight up good um, episode of Star Trek that you can put in any season. Like it's just awesome. It's it's lift us up where suffering cannot reach.
Lift
Um,
us up, lift us where suffering cannot
lift
reach. Yeah.
yeah, lift up.
Which it goes back, which I kind of like. It goes back to the really long titles that early Discovery used to have,
Yes, yes.
which they seem to have calmed down. Which I understand because some of those Discovery season 1 titles were just kind of like sentences, but I love them. Like the butcher's knife cares not for the lamb's cry.
It also reminds me a lot of like sort of like the ancillary media, where like where you have like where you have like all the novels and games and like extended
Or
media.
light novel titles.
Exactly, where like we're like okay, we're gonna treat Star Trek as like a sci-fi epic. So here is like the most like grandiose title we can give it, and that's why I like it. It feels soap opera-y, and like okay, and I feel like that works um, for this episode because like you have to have that maturity of you have to have that sense of like uh, importance and heft. But I'm gonna confess, I didn't watch this episode or Spock and Muck until like after the season had ended. So there was like
Oh, that's interesting.
5 weeks where I didn't watch um, Discover. Stranger Worlds because I was too busy watching the Orville. And like I said, I had to choose. I had to choose. I couldn't take both of that at the same time.
Okay, I think that's interesting because I think a big part of why Spuck and Monk works is seeing it immediately after Memento Mori.
I can
Going
see
from
that.
is maybe that wouldn't have fixed it for you, but I don't know, maybe it would have had a tiny effect because I liked going from that such dark, dramatic stuff to immediately to such a comedy episode.
No, I mean I don't think so because when I came back to the season after it ended, I actually started back from Ghost of Illyria.
Oh, okay.
Like I'm gonna start from Ghost of Illyria maybe because like I didn't wasn't feeling the episode before. Maybe I'll like it a little more this time,
Hmm.
And I want to watch the summary episode again because I really like that one. But overall, yeah. So at the time, it was all about the Orville because like I watched Orville in the morning. Like, can I watch Stranger Worlds? And like I think like and it's the only time I'm gonna say that they're right about anything on this podcast, on this live stream. But it was I understand more and more what Mike meant in the review for the Orville that the only one they ever did, where like they can't watch it because all it does is remind them of like your standard Star Trek episode. So like they just feel bored watching the Orville, and I feel like that's happened to me in reverse between this and Stranger Worlds, or like
Interesting.
well like but back when Orville was starting or Orville was coming back, and when we were showing trailers, I watched the trailer to like Orville season 3 before and before any of these shows premiered. And I'm like, should I watch season 3? Because I was watching that trailer. I'm like, you know what? I've gone into like Discovery and like Prodigy and all that stuff, and this just feels tame. Like I get too much what this is trying to do. And then like but compare, and I feel like if Stranger Worlds had been like more emotionally and character driven and substantive, I would have never touched um over season 3. Like if Stranger Worlds, Children of the Comet, Ghost of Illyria had been like straight up like bangers, I would have been like, you know what? Let's watch the next episode of Stranger Worlds and not even touch Orville.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
because they were weaker, I'm like, you know what? I need that fix. And then we get like the Orville episode where like everyone dies, or like, and then people have to like, or then people have to sacrifice themselves because they're entirely taken over by an alien parasite, and are like, oh my god, this is great. That's a great episode back. So no, go after watching Let Us Where Suffering Cannot Reach, and in retrospect, I should have kept watching them together because it's a shame. I stopped at exactly the wrong time.
Yeah, sounds like it.
Because like these next three episodes or the next two episodes are fucking incredible.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I think they very yeah, it's an interesting setup to basically take the framework of Omelis and flesh it out into the Ursula K. Le Guin story, and
Yes.
flesh it out into an episode, but make it their own. And also, I like that they committed to having the unhappy ending.
Hmm. It felt so like it just felt so strict, and I feel like you can see it happening a mile away. Like, okay, you can't, he's the chosen one, and we're all servants to him, but no one can ever leave our planet. Like, okay, that kid's gonna die. They're gonna do something horrible to that kid. You can see a mile away, but I think this is the best Pike episode in solitary. Like the entire season is about Pike, but usually he's chopped up like throughout like his interactions. But this is like a pure Pike episode, and so I think it feels so much more in keeping with what like a regular episode of Star Trek is like, where like you have one character, you're gonna zero in on them completely, and everything's gonna be about like that dynamic and what they're going through, what troubles they're going through. I felt a lot like the original Cage, where like Pike is like given this choice, and it's like a horrifying choice that no one should ever make. And he's like, it's again, it felt like the perfect counterpoint to the Cage.
Yeah, I can see that. Also, like that they added in the dilemma of using their technology to free him from the beep chair
Yes.
when it comes to it.
So I think this works like that as a Pike episode, where you have like his ongoing like reluctance, but like I think that's what makes him like really heroic in the end. I think there's to counterpoint. The CW did this thing with Crisis on Infinite Earths when they did their adaptation of it, and throughout this season of setting it up, Barry knows he's gonna die. He knows this is like season 2, he's gonna die, and so when Crisis on Infinite Earths starts happening, the season before it where it starts to build up, the entire season is dedicated to him trying to weasel out of it, and then he does. And I'm like, this is the worst thing I ever read. So like just seeing someone like Pike, like having to stick by like his guns and like morals is just so refreshing. And I think this really works because like on one level, like you understand what the Federation would think and what the culture thinks, and then you have Pike just having to like really, be having the natural human reaction, and it only highlights just like his characteristics, his like strength of character.
Hmm. Yeah, I can. Yeah, especially like when it all clicks together, how
Yeah.
firmly he tries to stop everything.
Yeah, it's like he does that. He's a classic Star Trek roundhouse punches, and I love that. Like I love I don't care for any like action scenes. Just do a big meaty swing, and
Yeah,
that's all I care about. That's all I want. Um, and I think what also helps it along is that the kid himself who got sacrificed by the society is so like indoctrinated. Yeah, the kid does
like
get like.
he doesn't like it doesn't shake him until he literally sees the dead body in front
And
of him.
even then, like you tell at the implications that he could have said no then too. Like the showing of the dead body is like the last kind of like step. Like, okay, you see the dead body here, huh? But even then, like the kid still goes along with it, and I feel like that's just one of the more like depressing and like horrifying aspects of the episode.
Yeah, definitely, especially because it looked like that hurt.
It did, and like the kid is still, she mentions that the kids are still alive until
It,
they're
it,
dead.
it was like it reminded me of like in The Simpsons in the Treehouse of Horror where you see Martin's dead body,
Yes,
and
exactly.
where it's like he's just in the rictus
Yeah,
of death.
the kid's like, oh god, and they still like again. But it was a really good episode. It also had like a really great like classic kind of production value. Like you go down to a planet and everything's like togas and like flowing
They
curtains.
had
Like
spears, and
perfect.
also I love also. I just love little scenes where like where a weak enemy attacks the Enterprise and they're just confused.
Yes, exactly.
Like that's one of my favorite tiny little moments in TNG where this primitive society starts attacking them with lasers, and Riker's like, "You mean phasers, right? No, lasers." They're like, what the hell's a laser? And it's
Yes.
like, yeah,
Now, other than that, yeah, it was a really great episode. A lot of the other secondary characters really didn't get a lot to do. But like I said, that didn't matter as
well,
much
they had
because
the Mbenga stuff, which at least reminded you of the
oh
daughter
yes,
stuff was continuing. It at
oh
least
yes,
reminded you that the daughter stuff's still there.
yes. But in the retrospect, I feel like a future episode does a disservice to this because I think this season this rushes past too many things. Um, yes, I thought that was really hearty too. Like it showed it's a lot of emotional depth that I think a lot of the other episodes are lacking. I'm not saying the other episodes aren't emotional, but like this one had so much richness to it. They're like, I'm gonna think about this episode for a while after it ends. Um, just on what it means for the characters, you know?
Oh yeah, especially because by the end, when he basically shuts down relations, he closed that door of being able to get him out of the beep chair later.
Yes. I think you can tell like that actor that the one playing like his little kind of like fling um lover character. Like it's hard to not feel a little bit of sympathy for her as well. Like you said that
Because
she really cares on, but this is just what her culture has kind of like told her and like indoctrinated in her, you know.
yeah,
But she like has all real emotions, so like he has to like actually break her heart.
yeah. I also like too that whenever what civilizations happen, there's actually like an internal struggle. Like there are people who say, "Oh, this is messed up,"
Yes,
and that's the hope that they leave you out on is that this culture is going to fight through this themselves.
yes, yes. All right. But yeah, no, great episode. Great episode. Um,
Next one is the Serene Squall.
okay. Yes, of course. Yeah, I have a great top three. I wouldn't change any of my top three because that's my third favorite one. I might have to change to my second favorite though. It is such a great Spock episode. That I kind of wish that we didn't even see the C plot they give it. I don't care about Pike in this episode. I don't care about one.
Oh
They're
yeah, that was weird. That was a weird attempt of humor to put this in the same episode.
yeah. So like, it's one of my least favorite tropes in any kind of story where like, hey, remember you
It was an outer deck. It was a lower decks plot line.
exactly, definitely. Like, but I've seen this so many times in like other like actual science fiction shows where like, hey, you remember like random planet name or ship name? Oh, it's a random planet or ship name, eh? And like, I hate that so much. Just say like, hey, let's just take over the ship. You know, talk like real people. No one's
Well,
listening.
weren't the guards? There weren't the guards in that scene?
Yes, but they were in all the other scenes. We were talking about the mutiny and everything. So like, they're not really trying to be quiet.
Uh,
But
yeah,
I hate that.
that
It's
was
so
basic.
corny.
Yeah, that was basically a lower deck. But I'll say the actors played it well. I mean, looked like they were having fun during that scene.
The payoff is really funny. I think that they should have just kept the payoff, but then there's
Oh,
not other scenes. Like just
where they didn't fully take over the ship, they just went into the room.
yes, like our mutiny is still going on. I think that was a great punchline, but it would have been better if it was like an orphan punchline. Like they got abducted and then we didn't see them the entire episode, and then like they just kept on the viewer screen as they're back, like, yeah, we took over the ship off screen. Fun. I mean, that would have been funny, but not, we just keep going back to it too much. Where like I don't care. You're this is a really tight Spock character episode, and we're just kind of like you're ruining it. You're ruining the engagement I'm having. You're distracting me from it.
Also distracting with the bringing up the possibility of Klingons coming up.
All right, I hate that. I hate that so much. I like you know what there's so many things we could be exploring. Let's stay away a bit from the old classics. You know.
Yeah.
Uh,
Although, of course, the MVP is like what's her name, Jesse James Keitel, like absolutely nailed it in the guest role.
yes. Okay. No, that's the thing. It was so obvious. Again, it was so obvious.
In
But
hindsight, because the character is too good. Like, well, okay. From my understand, the actress is trans, non-binary, but she uses she, but the character uses they.
yes,
But so I'm going to use she as in talking about the actress.
you're right.
Okay, I just like that. Like she plays the role too good, like too saintly in
Yeah,
hindsight.
exactly. Yes.
Like in hindsight, or when if you know, a lot of people in their first time viewing called it that she was too saintly, like she was saying all the right things too well.
Yes.
That of course, a turn was going to happen. But
Yeah.
I think she did it such a good job that if there wasn't a turn, you could have bought it. That this was just a really nice character.
I bought it a little bit, but only in the sense that, like, okay, I clearly personally I thought that there might have been a little bit going on between her and Spock, or at least a
Which
possibility.
in hindsight makes a little sense because you know it's Cybok's brother,
Yeah, exactly.
where she
But
probably sees some of Cybok in him.
and she knows how to maneuver between like Vulcans, like at least like emotionally, so that made a lot more sense in hindsight as well. But like they have such good chemistry, and like she's so like charming and enigmatic in the role. In both sides, like before the reveal happens, um, I made a tweet about this watching this, where I'm like, you know what? There's so many times this season, or they're like, they should put like a banner behind Spock saying "cheat on your girlfriend," because like they're giving Spock so many like romantic entanglements this season, where I'm just like, go, let's do it. I'm all for it because all the romances they're giving Spock this season are so fun in their own different ways.
Also, Ethan Peck is like it's also fun seeing an attractive actor have no idea what they're doing in a romance.
Yes,
Because
exactly.
Ethan Peck doesn't look like he has any trouble in the romance department. So it's funny just seeing him play like this guy has no idea what he's doing with any character.
That's why I thought was funny. I think it was in the Spock and Lego episode where he had that dream sequence, um, of being like fully human. I'm like, oh, so that made me appreciate the makeup work, because like he looks noticeably different. I think, and I really pay attention that much to like how he looks as Spock. You're like, okay, and this is like him as
Although I
fully
will
human.
say he has way better hair than he did at the end of Discovery.
Yes, definitely.
Have you ever looked that up? The hair, the way that they did his hairstyle after he shaves his beard, he looks horrible.
He does. He does. I saw that one. Like, oh god. One of the things that made me a little bit not interested in Stranger Worlds when it was getting teased. But overall, this is such a great episode for Spike, because he's coming from all sides. He has like this alluring kind of like new presence, in terms of like the pirate queen, or captain, that like that he's kind of like interested, like it's someone who's saying like kind of like forbidden in his own mind. Like Spock has so many hangups that you can tell. Like, T'Pring doesn't really care that much about his hangups, honestly. I feel like at this point in time she cares about him so much that if she like was more honest, she would like be
Not trying to have him killed in the ritual.
exactly. She'd be reluctant, but she might give it a shot. It wouldn't work out.
Although this episode does bring up the very interesting wrinkle that they're probably going to go into in season 2. You heard the name of her coworker, right?
Yes, Stan, right?
Yeah,
Stan.
Stan. Which kind of makes me wonder what his role in all this is.
Well, my only hope is that Spock cheats first. Let's do it. Like we can't let Spock get cucked on this show.
No, I think I think Spock would mind.
All right, we got a shout out here from Rollover Queen saying he wanted to say what's up. Thank you so much for checking in. Uh, great to have you. We do a podcast on our own, Comics Code Authority. So thank you so much for listening in. But yeah, no. And then we have it with Chapel, and again, it's very generic rom com stuff, like, oh, they're kissing, but don't
Well,
worry.
I kind of appreciated too that they had Angel call out how cliche this is.
Yeah, exactly.
Like nothing go like you can't. How are you falling for this?
Yeah, it's clearly. And again, that just makes her so fun. She's not having anyone's shit in this episode, and
Like
like,
she sees through Spock. Like when she dresses down Spock later, like she has his number completely. At least the
yes,
Spock of that moment.
yeah. Um, and it's such a great episode because you want Spock to be happy so much, and there's even though one of them turns like fake. One of my favorite things about rom-coms that do this, and okay, so one thing I hate most about rom-coms is a cheap love triangle. I hate cheap love triangles because it takes away character agency by making like the characters, the one that is already in a relationship or already has like a romantic partner that needs to be getting rid of, uh, to let the main characters get together. The stupidest people in the world, because like why, like because they make them like just so unlikable and just so like
I mean, you're
uh,
just describing a muck time where T'Pring has to be get out of the picture so that Spock can end up with Kirk.
exactly. Oh yeah, I say no time. Solitary wise, it's given the fact that the praying ends up a cold, heartless harpy. Um, and skip this episode. Um, I hate that. You've seen so many rom coms like we're like, they have just a couple and it's the main character wants
Which is why I kind of appreciate this because we know that T'Pring wasn't always the kind of
exactly,
person that would kill Spock to take all of his stuff.
exactly.
Which also makes me very curious. Like, what's her? Did you come onto this? Like, am I overthinking it? And Stan didn't have anything to do with it, or was Stan the devil in her ear making her do
Mm.
this?
Or
Like,
maybe,
we'll find. We'll just hopefully get fleshed out.
or maybe,
But it
maybe,
makes her a much richer character. Like I know that when I was rewatching Amok Time now, I actually felt a little bad about that.
or maybe something with Cybok. Like he chooses like he has to make he chooses like
Oh
again.
yeah, that's another thing. Like maybe when Sabak gets broken out, that probably destroys her career.
Yes, and she had to, and maybe Spock chooses to back up Discovery one too many times. Like again,
Yeah,
that's the thing that so you see that turn button. Like Spock is so in his own head, neuroses wise, that he keeps neglecting her. But anyway, back to my original thought.
I mean, it gets to the point to also continuity wise. I just noticed uh, that Uhura has no idea who she is, and neither does Kirk. So
Yeah,
something happened to the point where they don't see each other.
yes. I wonder if it's gonna be a Clone Wars type thing. Like, oh, my brother was just around. Uh, but what what I want to get at is that T'Pring is so understandable character. She's even such like sympathetic, and like she's sympathetic because like I think throughout these episodes with
I
her and
mean,
Spock,
yeah,
you're supposed to understand that Spock is like the piece of shit in these episodes. Like he's not like he's self censored, he's self conceited. Not in bad ways. He's going through his own shit mentally, but he's not a good partner. He's got too much going on. He needs to work on himself before even attempting to be in a relationship, and that's hurting the Pring. And so I that's why I mean like, so you have like this no fault love triangle, romantic circumstance. This episode kind of brings that to the surface. Like, yes, him and Chapel are cute, but like also they're giving them all equal agency, and I love that. And that's what really makes the episode like stand out to me so much.
yeah. Also, yeah. Uh, and then of course, continuing the Nurse Chapel stuff, which will continue into season two and into TOS.
Let's do it. Let's do it like a time skip. Let's do a time skip season. I feel like we're not going to be able to ever really get to into any of that like satisfactorily, unless we just skip ahead.
And also, I guess I mentioned it earlier too. It's also kind of funny that they didn't bring back Sarek's actor at all,
Yeah, you know. Maybe he was busy.
or maybe season two. But of course, that brings us to the ending because I kind of love that they just bring back Cybok into the show
Yeah.
from the one movie that everyone actively tries to, well, not kind of the TNG movies.
All right. But yeah, great episode. I hope again. I'm glad that they're setting up that we're going to see these actors again. At least the actor playing Angel again.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, I think they were coy about it in an interview, but I think they made it pretty clear that they are going to bring them back,
I feel like she's got a lot of that.
especially when we got to see Cybok,
Yeah.
because she's not in. Well, they're not. Now speaking about the character, they're not in Star Trek Five. So
Yeah.
something happened. Like, did they die? Did they break up? Are we going to see that story, or is it going to be like one of those things where we broke up and
$10 is going to be one of those things where like one of the characters in a romantic entanglement is way more invested than the other.
also brings up the question of like, is Cybok, still under communicating with the God thing? Like, are they going to bring up are they going to directly call connect to Star Trek Five, or is this just going to be like, oh, unrelated, and the stuff where he gets manipulated by the god creature comes later?
All right. Yeah, it does bring a lot of stuff, and I can't wait. I thought it was gonna. There's so many things in this season that I thought were gonna end up bigger to be bigger things in the season finale. But we're gonna get that soon. I thought for sure, like, oh, we're gonna see a couple of this stuff like pay off in a big season finale. Not true. Not true at
Which
all.
I think they were filming seasons 1 and 2 together because of COVID.
Yeah, no, season
Because
two.
I know I read set leaks about a plot point that was going to be happening, but it didn't happen at all.
Yeah, I think they filmed them back to back. Yeah.
Yeah, because the plot point I heard is that the finale was going to have a big episode about the how do you say it? The Denobulans and the Antarans from Star Trek Enterprise,
Mm,
where you know Doctor Phlox's race.
yeah.
There's this one episode where Doctor Phlox, we find out that his species was once in an interplanetary war with another race, and it was about generational hatred. Uh, it was like set photos where like they were gonna visit them, and the two races were about to go to war again. So I'm wondering if that's season 2 or if that was a completely fake leak.
I think probably season two. You know, again, so much of this stuff is like it just doesn't feel like a complete season. It feels like the beginning of a season. I feel like that's partly because it's only 10 episodes, and maybe because they're still getting their feet out of like writing serialized television. Because you know,
Yeah,
but let's move on to the next episode, which is my least favorite episode after the pilot, the Elysian Kingdom. Oh god, this was a tough sit through. Oh my god,
I enjoyed it personally.
take
I
it
did.
away.
Yeah, this is basically a cosmic entity episode. Like it's Trelane, it's Q, it's it's like one of the episodes that Roddenberry, like Harlan Ellison, liked to say. It's the only type of episode that Gene Roddenberry knew how to write. It's a god entity playing tricks on people. Well, although I do appreciate that the entity in this episode is just called Deborah.
Yes, which is a fun detail. What gets me to this episode is that
It's also like an episode where people play roles, like it's like the Killing Game from Voyager or Our Man Bashir from DS9, where it just lets you let the actors have fun and play different roles.
yes. I think it just hurt it that like everyone's dumb. Like, you know what I mean? Like, if usually,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I get you. I mean, on the one hand, it makes sense because it's a storybook written for children, but on the other hand, they're the ones who wrote it that way to begin with, the writers of the show.
exactly.
Although I don't know, this felt more like just a vibes episode.
But like more than that, it's that like usually in these kind of episodes, the setting will also kind of change. And this one is so clearly the ship. And so you have characters running around like, oh, is this a magical gateway about a door? And like, oh, I don't want to watch this. This is so
I did
low
think
rent.
it was funny when it was the hallway was just they called the hallway a forest.
Yes. And that stuff is like chalk, nails on chalkboard to me.
Eh, I get it, but it didn't really bother me. I just like honestly, it was like it was one of those things where I liked where everyone else was having fun. Especially, I really liked Pike's turn as the sniveling toady,
Yes.
where he just plays a complete a sniveling buffoon.
Yes. And like it beats the shit. He betrays everyone. That was fun. Like I like that stuff a lot, but also I thought like I always like the version of the episodes where like they're all kind of in on it. So you know you can see like how those dynamics shift when they're like cognizant of the roles they need to play.
Well, that's why I brought up those two prior episodes because there were two episodes where well, although those were, I guess it's basically a holodeck episode,
Yeah, kind of. I think it would work
but
better.
the technology didn't exist
Yeah.
because like in both Our Man Bashir and the Killing Game, like all the the people were like they were put in the roles and then they literally thought they were in the roles, which basically what happened in this episode. Except in those instances, it was like a James Bond parody, and the other one was World War II drama, which I guess maybe lends itself better for this kind of thing instead of going all comedy.
Yeah.
But I still appreciate it. I liked having a big focus on Mbenga. I liked having a focus on Hammer.
I think
Uh,
Hammer was like the saving grace of the comedy. Like he got the only laughs from me.
oh, was it that the magic of science?
Yeah, like he like here's some magic, and he just teleports him away. Like he's over it. Like science, they just teleported. Like good, let's move on. Man, if this series had a Q, or if they want to like introduce a Q in the future, get this actor. This actor would kill it.
Who again? Remind me. Sorry, sorry.
Let me see. Hammer. I'm talking about Hammer.
Oh, Bruce Horak. Yeah, yeah,
He would
yeah.
kill
He
it.
was really good.
Just so fun. Now let me see. And also, while I like that it was continuing on the thread of Mbenga's daughter, it's so condensed. Like between like this and Lift Us Where Suffering Cannot Reach, it's so condensed. Like, oh, here's where. Oh, you mean like we could start treatment? Yes. Okay, so cool. We're gonna see this ongoing kind of bracing
That
of time,
that's
and
one thing because we did. They never told us how long she had left. Which
exactly.
I was under the impression that it was like from initially. I was under the impression that she probably had like a year left, but here they made it seem like she had days left.
Well, also, you don't really know how long it's been since that episode.
Yeah, because yeah,
So, like again, it feels weird, and if we had like more of a solid time frame and time scale, it would feel more earned, but it just feels unearned.
that's fair. Especially because again, if this probably would have been better at the end of a 20 season.
Exactly.
Like a 20 episode season, if this was like episode 18 out of 20, or even like episode 13 out of 15, you'd had more time to stew in it. Maybe have a few more appearances of Rukia.
Yes.
But here was just the two times.
Yeah,
I understand.
and like, and then even then, all right, when she like, we'll see each other when she like when he like gives his daughter away to like live forever in the cosmic ghost cloud. I'm like, okay, cool. So in the future, we'll see he'll be reading up his daughter, and then boom, she comes back. She's an adult. Like, oh my god, this episode can't let anything lie, can it?
Like yeah, that's what I was saying. Like I get the concept. I get the concept of timeless being. So of course, it's like one of those things that quote make sense, air quotes, that it's only been a few seconds, but she probably lived the whole life. I mean, transcendental beings, how could we know? But it did kind of feel weird that they just kind of came around to put everything in a nice bow.
Exactly. Like they don't want to touch this again. They don't want to like have a kid actor around again. So it's just okay, good. She lived happily ever after. We're never gonna hear from her again. Don't ever expect this ever again. Like, oh my god.
Also, they have an adult actress, so now if they do bring her back, they could just go bring back that actress.
Exactly.
Also, I guess they didn't want to end it on such a because if they left it on that note without her coming back, I think this would have been a very divisive episode with people viewing the episode as a bad, viewing the decision as being a bad decision.
I feel like it could have been like, and here's what I thought was gonna happen. I feel like it could have ended with like some acknowledgement that she is in the cloud happy. Like they move ahead and there's some sort of difference. Maybe like there's some piece like let's
or like he picks up the storybook and the ending's different.
Exactly, something like that. Reality's gonna be slightly different around him. He's gonna notice like, okay, that's her. That's still her.
I was wondering because I did not get a chance to rewatch the mega episodes of TOS, but I remember someone was telling me that he was portrayed as a sad sack. So I was wondering if that was going to contribute to that. Although maybe that's in hindsight, that could also just be that because he lost his job to McCoy.
Oh my god.
And basically, yeah,
he was a little bit, wasn't he? Let me see.
He showed up in 2 episodes in season 2 and season 3.
I need to watch those then.
Yeah, I didn't have a chance to watch those because I prioritized the big ones.
I'm gonna see. Like, but it's good. Like, again, this is something where it makes me want a time skip, like to skip ahead to like after season 4 of TOS.
Yeah, like the ending of the mission, or going to like
if you're already fudging this much, just fudge a little more, or like go into in between episodes.
Yeah. Although they could probably do that more. That's what I was say that probably would have been the best thing to do with short treks, but they seem to be stopped making those.
Well, to be fair, I think the only one that they still like that anyone ever really paying attention to has been retconned out of existence.
Oh, Calypso, yeah.
Yeah, like there's that can't happen anymore. Like it just in the ether.
Although I like the mud one.
Eh, that was better than his actual appearances.
Yeah, yeah, that was actually fun. Like with the twist, I felt more like a mud scheme.
And I feel like again, what all I wanted at Discovery if it had hey, maybe Mud's in the future, or hey, now that we have Strange New Worlds, let's have classic Mud. Like
I mean,
Rain Wilson isn't a bad egg.
Mud is trapped forever with those androids. They probably keep him alive.
Yeah,
The last time we see him, he's like stuck. They trapped him with a bunch of androids of his wife, which is
yeah.
honestly probably hell.
But yeah, you could definitely bring him back. And Rain Wilson just didn't really get like the biggest riff on him. So let's just do it. Like there's so much they could do with this season. But anyway, let's move ahead to the next episode, which
The
is
Gorn.
yes, for
It's
those
alien.
all those who wonder. Yeah.
It's both alien and aliens.
Where did I rank this?
Let me see. You put this in the middle, squarely in the middle.
Yeah, it's a middle episode. It's a fun episode concept. Very weak character wise.
I mean, I like some of the stuff they did with Spock conceptually. Like, I like the idea that he didn't that he slighted the new lieutenant,
Yes.
and he never got a chance to make up for it. And so having him die in his hands like that, so he does that, I guess, Vulcan anger ritual.
Yeah.
Also,
And
I just like that there's like a Vulcan anger ritual.
yes, of course, there would be. Why wouldn't there? They meditate over everything. It's
Yeah,
amazing.
so there'd be a ritual where you just Hulk out.
Yes, but just go to those break rooms, like they have right now. Um, but
Also,
yeah, yes,
I like the TOS references. I like that they made Sam Kirk do basically Galileo 7.
yes, exactly. I just watched that episode. That's hilarious. Um, all right. So like, my main beef with this episode is that like I think the only real depth anyone gets is like Spock, and then they're just not enough to go around to the point where like they want us to feel ways about stuff,
I
but
mean, there's some of the stuff they did with La'an,
kinda. But like
or like with like the stuff where she got the catharsis of killing the Gorn.
I feel like they could have really hammered more of that in while the refugees were still alive.
Yeah,
But like they after the fact, she just kind of becomes like your regular hardened veteran archetype.
yeah.
She just becomes like Ripley. Like okay, we get it.
Well, it was also interesting that they got her off the board,
Yeah,
which makes me curious what they're going to do in season 2.
yeah. I think that
And then, of course, I guess we got to talk about the Gorn. I mean, having just watched Arena, I think it's very.
hilarious.
It is that it's like one of those things where it makes me question how the hell this civilization became a civilization. How these aren't animals, like
Maybe
with that kind of reproductive system. I'm gonna assume that when they're adults, they actually start thinking and they don't start spitting, because otherwise the Gorn captain would have just spit on Kirk and ended it.
yes. I
It's
feel
probably
like I feel like that's what like was the original plan for the aliens when Geiger created them for the movies. That they were like egalitarian, or not Geiger, but Scott's original idea was that they would be an egalitarian society, and that their larval stages are just primal, like they're just can't be contained. But
which I guess does bring up the question how the hell they develop a society. But I guess it's one of those things where you just kind of like you're gonna hang up with it, or you want the episode to exist, or don't you?
exactly. And so I appreciate like the episode's insanity and like horror, but like nah, bit iffy, bit naff.
I mean, yeah. I mean, I like and also the hilarity of just bringing in two characters, naming them, and they both die.
I wish they hadn't done that because it makes Hemmer's death so much more uneventful. Like I feel like they wasted their load on depths way before they got to his. Like I don't care. Your depth is only so that whoever doesn't leave. I'm sorry, your death is just prequel bait.
Although I did like the line though, his last words. I did like his last words where, but that's just like Andoria.
Yeah,
Because when we see Andoria and Enterprise, it's a frozen wasteland.
yeah,
What else? What else? It does, although it does, continuity wise, because I know some people were like hate the idea of bringing in the Gorn at all. This is the one where, like, I think Memento Mori works with Arena, like that, no problem.
exactly. Because like
Because
it's
you don't see
strategy.
the ships are different, and you don't see what they look like. Here, though, I mean, it does kind of just. This is like Arena. You just have to assume that Kirk didn't read the briefs
Exactly.
because
Like
he would have known they're reptilian. Because in Arena, he's surprised that they're reptilian. Also, he didn't know what the word Gorn meant. The Metron told him what the name was.
I don't know. Maybe it's one of those things where like the Federation's like, yeah, let's redact all this again.
I'm
We're
guessing
redact.
either that or Kirk is just kind of an incurious doofus, which I
Yes,
guess you do kind of see in TOS.
it makes sense.
I mean, because he had no idea. I don't even. Yeah, I don't. He basically didn't know anything about anyone.
uh, eh, oh, whatever, whatever. I hope there's more gore in next season, just so that we can understand more. Because right now, I'm like, none of this makes sense.
Or to use this spring load and then have Gorn in Discovery or something.
Yeah.
Because you
Oh,
can't really do anything meaty with the Gorn until after Arena.
oh, that's true. That's true. Again, that's the thing.
Because
Like,
Arenas when they're full out and they know what they look like, they know what their names are, and then that episode ends with them having a dialogue. Or like the possibility of a dialogue. They can't really do any of that. They can only have skirmishes where one or most of the people involved die.
that's what I'm saying. Time skip season. Let's do it.
Yeah. Although I do like the idea of just taking the goofy rubber-headed monster and just making them like this horrific nightmare from the space.
Yeah, it's the thing. Okay, so like they were doomed. They were doomed if they didn't. Doomed if they did, because like with that, like it's the Gorn do not have a memorable design. Like they look just like a regular Halloween costume.
I mean, that's why a lot of people thought Linus was the Gorn at first when we saw his design in Discovery.
Yeah.
Only it turns out that he's the other dinosaur species that showed up from TMP. Which I kind of love that Star Trek has multiple dinosaur species and multiple cat species.
All right.
I will, I guess, close off and say one more thing. One more thing I wanted to say. I can't remember. I mean, go on while I try to think.
All right. Again, we get more Chapel stuff
Oh,
here.
oh yeah, we did get some more stuff with her. Which maybe. No, you go on. Go on.
Well, Chapel. I think when she first appeared, everyone was like, "How? Why is she so like like energetic? You know, shouldn't she like be like in mourning?" And I think they've really played around with that in such an interesting way, where it's a defense mechanism. You know,
Oh,
that
I actually didn't consider it like seeing so much death up front is making her like want to stay on the ship more.
yeah. Well, that too, but also like the fact that like she's at least in this show, she's trying to take everything as light as she can, because of like her back. I mean, like when this premiered, all the regular or usual suspects were like, "Oh, they ruined Nurse Chapel. She's too happy. She should be a little bit more. She's
I
too much
remember.
like
Oh,
energetic."
that my favorite was that Devin Faraci of all people was making these tweets.
Oh yeah, fuck him.
That's just so funny. That's just so funny that he thinks everyone's just forgotten about everything.
Yeah, fuck him. But yeah, no, like so I thought like this and the Serene Squall they make such great cases for that she's almost self-destructive. She's not allowing herself to process emotions the way she like probably more healthy. So she's taking everything as like inconsequential as possible.
And of course, I don't know if you got to this episode in season two. I mean, and in wait. Oh, it's a season one episode of TNG. Where with her fiance.
Yes.
Dr. Corby.
Oh yeah, you mean TOS, Corby.
Yeah,
Yeah,
TOS.
that's what I mean. That's what I'm talking about. Everyone was talking about it. This ruins the Corby episode. Like because she should be like, shouldn't she like be sad and like a little dour and depressed? And like, yes, she is, but this is like a really interesting way of showing
A
that.
coping mechanism. Also, you don't know that maybe they had an open relationship.
No, I feel like that's the reason. Like she pretty much says like she doesn't want to get attached to anyone, obviously because Corby is lost in space.
I was wondering if they were going to bring that up, but I'm guessing that's the season 2 because I saw Kiva Goldsman tweeted out when someone asked him about it.
Well, I think that's one of the things where if you've seen the episode, it's clear whenever she mentions like having lost people and not wanting to lose people and just not wanting to have any attachments. Like she means it's a clear reference to the Corby episode. But like that's one thing. Like if this weren't a prequel, we could really dig into it, but we can't because they didn't. We just can't. We just can't move on because she doesn't like officially move on until she knows that Corby is like a complete monster maniac man who is fucking a robot.
Yeah, which I mean, isn't that how all relationships end?
Oh my god, yes, it's the future, people.
Damn, what was I gonna say?
I don't know, but yeah, that's what I really think that she and Spock are really cute. They're really cute. But like,
I remember. Some people were bringing out the hypocrisy about how there was no attempt to communicate with the Gorn because the big thing about Arena was that the Gorn wasn't a monster; they were able to speak to them.
These are babies.
Yeah, they're babies. They can't think.
they're running on instinct.
They're literal infants. They can't. Yeah. Little infant can't speak. I mean, they even established this earlier where they weren't even around. The parents weren't around. They just left them there with the humans.
Yeah, or the people escaped. Yeah, and shit.
I imagine like again when they get older, they're able to speak because the Gorn captain was able to. I mean, he wasn't articulate, but he was able to think and plan. Like immediately, the first thing he did was rip up a branch off a tree and start using it as a club. And he started like he didn't tip his hand about being able to hear Kirk's logs until the end.
Yeah.
Like also of course all the quick maneuvers. Like a stupid race would not have been able to have done all the maneuvers from Memento Mori.
Yes, exactly.
Like they literally like a few moments almost completely outsmarted the Enterprise crew. Yeah.
So, well, yeah, good episode, but just it was lacking so much. It fell into cliches too much, too often. The fact that it was just a kind of rip-off episode didn't do any favors.
Yeah.
All right, last episode. Let's do it. Quality of Mercy.
Balance of Terror Part 2.
Yes, Balance of Terror redo. Or Balance of Terror. We're gonna retcon stuff out because they no longer make sense.
I mean, it's interesting, man, because you've had this whole thing about should Pike be able to change the future or not? Because it's a very it's a natural thing to just write a letter. Hey, don't show up that day when you're in school in like 10 years. Don't show up to class this one day.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, that's like the very least he could do.
I'm your instructor. I'll give you the pass.
Yeah, I'm saying just forget about it. Timey-wimey stuff.
And people would understand too, because space,
Yeah.
Right, but what gets to me is that I don't know. Like you already had Memento Mori, which is like a really great, like kind of ship to ship, like point counterpoint episode, just like Balance of Terror. And then this episode is trying to be Balance of Terror, and it's like I don't know, like it just I think Balance of Terror is like one of the best sci-fi episodes of any show.
Oh yeah, I just rewatched it. It's one of those like a lot of TOS episodes you go, oh, this is pretty good for its time, or this is pretty good, but there's always like a but. No, like Balance of Terror is just good.
It's a classic. It's a sci-fi classic.
It's straight up good. Like the only thing you just like you just say, oh, that's silly, is like when everyone is trying to walk slowly so that they don't alert people in space.
Exactly.
Like, that's the one thing because okay, I guess they didn't know that at the time that there's no air in space, or they didn't think about it. So it's kind of silly that everyone's whispering and tiptoeing on the bridge.
Or you probably just say like, oh, sensors, whatever. I can understand it. It makes silly, but whatever. But yes, of course. But this at this point, it just feels like a cover song, but that's being intruded upon with weird new lyrics. You know, the stuff I love about this episode is when you really get into like what made Bounce Terror work and why Pike is doing. I think it's very logical. He's making very logical decisions to him, character wise. This is the stuff that makes sense. Very rational, I should say.
But
He's a rat,
he's not taking the situation for what it is.
which is a very serious situation. And when
Because there are sometimes you cannot reason with someone. I mean,
exactly,
it's sad, but you have to be prepared for it. DS9, the Dominion had to be fought. There
yeah,
was no way for that situation to end diplomatically. It just wasn't going to happen.
yes, exactly. And I feel like when you see Bounce of Terror, the moment that uh, Kirk like kind of takes the situation. Okay, we're here. The borders are here, and these things are being destroyed along this ridge, and we're stuck with no help. He like yeah, this is he becomes like insanely serious. Like this is we're taking this for what it is. You know, one of us is dying. There's no if two ways about that. One of us is dying, and I think that's great. We want with Pike, like, he wants, and this is what we see throughout every episode of the season where he's like in a diplomatic situation. He's trying to like jazz it up, you know, and like which is good. Like in the moment you want to have Olive Branch that peacefulness. Yeah, no, I think that's the best part of the episode is
But
when
also,
he's
I saw some people criticize that this makes the ending of Balance of Terror good. Like
oh whoa
no, like the ending of Balance of Terror, like being a happy ending where they had to kill them. But I think even in Balance of Terror, they pointed it out. Like even the commander says that he wishes that their ship was destroyed because, I mean, some people are acting like it comes out of nowhere that if the ship returns back to the Romulan space, it would start a war. But the commander himself says it in Balance of Terror. Like
exactly
this is one of those situations where like this is a clear provocation, so they have to respond. I
exactly
mean, you either get the Romulans to defect or you destroy them.
exactly, and I think my only iffy thing would be that like I
And
understand
that's
what
sad. That's not a happy thing that they have to do that.
no, and that's what makes the kind of ending. That's what the speech is about. That's what the speech is about. They understand.
Like if it was just up to the commander and Kirk, this would have ended peacefully. But it
Yeah.
couldn't. Like the commander had his orders, and he had his own crew who were already indoctrinated into the Romulan way of thinking.
And what I like is that
Like if he didn't do that, his second in command would have just shot him in the head and continued.
yes, and yeah,
That's even what he does in Balance of Terror. Like several times, his second in command is trying to weasel his way into control, but he does it like he steps in and does it. No, I'm going to do it. Like when he says, like when the second in command in Balance of Terror says, "I'm going to make the order to shoot." I'm like, no, okay, we're going to shoot, but I give the order. Like he keeps, like he doesn't like big dog him, but he makes sure like he's in a tenuous position. Like
yeah,
if he didn't walk this fine line, his Decius would have taken him out, which does
exactly,
happen in this episode.
which
Like
is great.
when Pike gives him the olive branch, this gives Decius the chance to betray him.
Yes, in Balance of Terror, they're both of them are too busy trying to outmaneuver the other. There's no room for any of that. Everyone's on their game.
Yeah,
Everyone's on their ball.
there's no breathers. Everyone's just here. Pike creates the situation to give people a breather room. They give some time to think. Like Decius probably didn't have the idea in his head to send for reinforcements because the commander wasn't making any big mistakes.
And there wasn't. Yeah.
It was a crisis moment. When did he have time to do that, to step away? But here, when they gave him that, he was able to reflect and think, oh, the commander's doing things wrong. Also,
Yeah.
we're in a breather moment. I can send reinforcement. I can
Yeah,
send
yeah.
for reinforcements.
I can get message out.
Although that is kind of absurd, though, that he could get a message out at all and that the reinforcements arrive so quickly.
Yeah, maybe like, who knows? They knew they were on like a
Also,
mission.
that the experimental plasma weapon was already installed on the other ships, and
Yeah.
there was a bigger ship at all because Decius in Balance of Terror says that their ship was the most advanced in the Romulan. But now you start going into like but then.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing to me that stood out was
But
obviously
I think
that,
this is why it didn't. This is why all the stuff in the Star Trek '09 didn't bother me too much because you had 20 years of the butterfly effect happening.
exactly. So of course
Like
everything could
20
have been
years, yeah, you have 20 years of like well, everyone had access to Nero's advanced technology, and then all this, the like this big 9/11 attack happened, so everyone has like 20 years to divulge their technology, and that's why everything's different. This
Yeah.
is like 10 years, 7 years of things being different because of Pike being there. I mean, you have to stretch your credulity how this could mean that the Praetor is now a woman, because in Balance of Terror is clearly a guy. But you just gotta squint and ignore that.
Yeah, yeah. So the funny thing to me was that like in the original Downstairs episode, what makes it classic to me is that like it's like the big this ship can become invisible kind of thing, which is I think
yeah,
perfect.
because that's the introduction of the technology to the audience back in TOS.
Yes, and I love it. I love out of context episodes or threats.
Let me look it up. What the cloaking technology? 'Cause it's even big. Well, you haven't reached it, but there's like a whole episode in later TOS where like the Enterprise like does a huge like active war against the Romulans so they can steal the cloaking device.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I would assume. But yeah, no, I
But
love
here in Discovery, they have to incorporate the fact that they just had a war with the Romulans, and that the war began when the giant cloak ship rammed this giant ship and destroyed it.
yeah. So like they had to erase all those lines in scenes that they recreate, where they had to like not mention the fact that they're astounded by the token technology. They just say like they all focuses on the weapon, on like the plasma weapon, and like cloak. Oh yeah, the cloaking is also kind of messing us up a little bit, but it's
Yeah, like
really.
they act like they know what it is, which makes sense because they just had the Klingon War, so of course they would know what it is.
But I think it gets rid of some of the zest. I love of that episode because like I love it when something that's commonplace to us is like this huge game changing thing to like the characters. Like sometimes that's why I love seeing like okay we're gonna take like a werewolf and put it in like a Viking times. We know what a werewolf is, but a Viking might not know what a werewolf is. You know, so like
Yeah.
I love seeing stories that play out. Like how do they confront something that they can't get the handle of?
Mhm.
But yeah, so I felt like that was a little bit weak, a little bit limp. But well, I love this episode over
Although I
anything.
did like the fact that they are literally doing the same events. I it's like I kind of give them a pass for redoing exact lines, like what Spock says in the briefing room
Yeah,
is he's literally saying the same lines Leonard Nimoy did,
yeah,
like
exactly.
verbatim.
And he did a really good like one eyebrow thing. They
Oh
even
yeah,
did they even like the music cue.
oh yeah, that was pretty good.
That's fun. What I love so much about redoing the lines, exact lines, is that I love that it made Ortegas the giant racist.
But
Uh,
more sensible, like they dropped it after the briefing room.
yeah, I wish they had kept it up a
What
little
was
bit.
his name? Styles.
Styles, yeah,
Yeah, Styles. Even after the briefing room was still racist until at the very end when Spock saved him.
yeah. But Ortega, I'm glad they made her like the giant bigot because like it makes sense. I
I
can
mean, it
see
gives
it.
her something to do.
Give something to do. But also like I don't know about you, but like Latinos, man, they're not they're hard to like endear to. I'm a Latino and like oof, nine out of
Yeah,
10, 9 out of 10.
yeah,
They would act exactly the same.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I guess you're not entirely wrong there.
No, I'm not. So I'm like glad. Okay, good. This is accurate representation.
So I'm hoping although I hope in season 2 they give her more to do. But yeah, I did appreciate then that they kept because they had to change the bridge crew out. Oh, a tiny little thing I got pointed out when I was watching Trek Yards is that Uhura's station in the whole season, it's in the front or like in the back. It's where it is in the cage,
Yeah.
and in this episode, it's where it is in TOS.
Yeah, so I love that too. I noticed that right when he's flipping his head back, like, huh? Like,
Like, why are you over there? Yeah,
I
because that's where it is in TOS.
also, I love how he notices like the lighting is all different. Like everything's more gray, and, like grayer than it is
Yeah,
usually. So it's like, so I like that a lot. But I think the best part of the episode is that it's Kirk. Kirk is really good.
yeah. I mean,
Like,
I'm not entirely sold, but this is the first time playing the role, and I'm guessing I can't remember exactly how I felt, but I imagine. I mean, I imagine I would probably wasn't entirely sold from just seeing Kirk, Spock, and brother back in Discovery.
I,
But now I think Peck is probably. I hesitate to say better than Quinto, but Yeah, probably better than especially because
He's got he's got more to
especially
do.
yeah, he's got more to do. Especially I hesitate to say that because Quinto had the benefit of having Nimoy himself there, giving
Yes.
him pointers and everything. So I hesitate to say that, but I guess apples and oranges. I guess because it's a very different spot. But I really like Pix. So hopefully, with more to do, I could really grow to like Wesley's Kirk more than I do Pine because
Yes.
Pine really grew on me and with Beyond.
Yes. Beyond was great. But with Wesley,
Although I kind of part of me kind of felt like they should have just had Sam's actor shave his mustache.
yes, exactly. Right. Why didn't they do
Also,
that?
could have brought back Sarek's actor from Discovery to play the Romulan commander. I mean, just go for it.
Just go, yeah, be corny like that. I missed that. I missed that a lot. I like this corniness. But what again? I like what I like about Kirk in this episode is that you see like he's it's kind of like he's gung ho, yes, but
But
like
he's
within reason.
he's not entirely like. Although that is another thing because I think a big thing about a character like Kirk is that you have to deal with his reputation more than like his
Yes,
actual thing because having just seen Balance of Terror, Kirk is a bit gung ho and but he's very reasoned.
exactly.
Like he thinks things through. He's very reasoned. He's very like that whole scene with him and McCoy in his room where he
Yes,
has to grapple with all this.
yes,
Like that's not here. But again, we could kind of chalk that up to this being a different timeline. Like
yeah.
he was never put into the flagship. He just take over from the Farragut.
What I
And so
like
this
is
is probably a calmer Kirk,
yeah.
or does the Kirk develop differently? So it all depends on how he is in season 2.
Yes, and also he was able to he was able to consider that like yeah they're gonna betray us like as hell, so we're gonna do all this, we're gonna do this. I thought that was really reasoned, and I do love the fact that like him being there ruins like his plan,
Yeah,
like like the original plan of like using the comet for cover. The fact that there's two of them makes it like easier for the Romulans to like, maneuver around them.
yeah,
Like so it doesn't work this time because there's too many moving pieces. That's great. I love it. Before it was so simple, like just easier to like kind of shadow them. Um, so good. Stuff like that. Stuff like that. But also, let's just talk about in the living room. This entire episode is about like Pike seeing how long, seeing what makes his sacrifice worth it. You know.
yeah. And I do understand the criticism of saying that this cheapens it because I can kind of see it, but but also it's like a personal disagreement.
I'm in both minds. Like I think it makes I think like oh he knows about it and he walks to his sacrifice is very kind of cheap and lazy. But seeing all this as well makes again like we said at the beginning makes Spock's actions to like do all this insane
To
stuff.
risk execution for some reason.
Yes, to risk execution, to like karate chop a bunch of guys, to hijack a ship, to like just go against every fucking regulation imaginable to get this guy some sort of semblance of like respite from his horrible injuries. Sensible, like when I watch the Cage, like like when Spock is doing all that stuff, like that's kind of funny. Like oh, Spock is doing this insane maniac stuff. But now I should watch after watching stuff like this, like oh, you know what? Fuck it, yeah, I do it too.
Yeah,
Like go ahead, go off. And I also thought it was pretty funny. Like they bring in Spock, they bring in Kirk. I mean, and they hint that like, oh, you have to give your life for someone. You have to give your life for someone else. Like, oh, Kirk is gonna die. Like, no, Spock dies. Like, okay, that's
yeah. I did like that. That he basically had a similar injuries to Pike does, but also lost his leg.
yeah, just all horrible burns everywhere and all that shit. Insane. Also thought let's talk about they also bring back that the two newlyweds.
And
And
then
they
flipped who died.
yes. Well, the thing is, right? The guy, the groom, kind of looks exactly the same.
Yeah, but then they flipped the ethnicity of the woman, which
Yeah,
also I noticed they did that with Colony Head. The
Yes.
head of the colony was a white guy in the original, but now he's a Middle Eastern man.
Yeah, but he's like the dad of the guy that
Yeah, the
Pike
kid who
said.
died, which kind of just makes it extra sad now that you
Yeah.
watch Balance of Terror that his son died like just like 6 months ago,
Yeah.
and now his entire thing was just annihilated.
Yes, horrifying. But yeah, no, I thought about yeah, that guy looked like I don't know, it was eerie. It was eerie, like saying like that guy is so similar looking to the Groom in the original. Um, but yeah, no, great episode, great episode. But kind of weird to end the season. It feels un not and unconclusive. Yes, okay, so we kind of get like Pike's final answer and final like point of divergence. Great. Now we can really sort of dig in a lot more deeper to their characters because I feel like this should be the button on Pike's character arc so far. Obviously, other things can pop up, but it should be the bow.
Yeah,
Because right now, Pike is kind of like keeping the other characters from thriving a little bit.
yeah, he's like he casts a really big shadow. Also, the fact that by his very nature, Kirk cannot reach his full potential if he's there.
Exactly. Pike has to die. Oh, not die, but like
Beep chair.
beep chair. Yeah. Um, but like it also ends on a cliffhanger, and I'm like, I after like so many episodes of like not being serialized, it was kind of shocking. Like pulled me out of it. Like shook me back to reality. Like okay, yeah, they have to set up a second season.
Yeah, and what else? What else? And then of course we got to talk about how this. Oh, was it just me or were in this universe where Lon and Pike's supposed to be married or something?
In the second year,
Because
it
the way
was
she reacts,
very
they didn't
awkward.
dwell on it. Because the way they continue move on from. But I got the vibe that in this universe they were married.
I got the vibe that at least they were more familiar.
Yeah.
I'm not sure married.
Or yeah, something like that. Like there was history. Like she acts like their relationship is not exactly what it was.
Exactly. I think that probably became like here became. I think she might have spent a little bit of time with number one gone. It probably created more of a void with that she filled. It created a void with Pike that she kind of probably filled because of their similarities.
Yeah, which of course has to bring us to the ending,
Yes, where
where it has the same ending as Lower Deck season 2.
yeah. Oh my God, it does. Where number one gets arrested for space crimes of being,
Of being a genetic super mutant.
which I thought people knew.
I mean, I guess no, because Pike knew. That's what we knew. Is that Pike knew, and Chapel and Mbenga knew, and they made it clear that Chapel didn't care, and Mbenga didn't care, and Pike didn't care. But I don't think that anyone else. Oh, Lon knew. But I
Yes.
guess it squared away so that Lon didn't tell people.
See, like I didn't get that officially. Previously. So like it felt like kind of like weird. I guess you're right, but like it could have been hammered home a lot more than it was.
Yeah, because it does make me wonder how. Because I hope this show continues to be the niche of being self-contained. It doesn't go serialized. But I wonder how they're going to do this.
Yes.
Also, I'm wondering too if like Kirk, if this is how Kirk is going to be involved, is that he's going to get Kirk to help him with this.
No, probably. I can totally see that.
Because at the ending, Kirk is checking his service records.
Yeah, I know. That's great.
Which I did appreciate that it mentioned that he was the only survivor of that massacred colony.
Mm.
I don't know if you saw that, the Conscience of the King.
Yes, that was a great episode. Oh God, so many good episodes. Okay, so yeah, no, I really hope it doesn't take too much time up. Like, I hope it gets solved quickly. But then again, if it gets solved quickly, it just might feel like why the fuck we were doing it anyway. But if it doesn't get solved quickly, then it adds elements of serialization, which I think that
because the Captain Freeman stuff from Lower Decks is going to be the plot of the season.
Exactly,
and they're going to bring in the Vulcan, and that's going to be like they're going to have their own little adventure, but they're going to be building up to this.
Yes,
but this it's like I don't know how they're going to, especially because they're going to bring in. I guess let's just transition to talking about season 2.
Yeah. Let me get the banner
using
up.
this to continue. Yeah. Just bring season 2 because we got this, the stuff with number one.
Yes.
We have Cybok and Angel.
Yes.
They have confirmed. Oh, they have confirmed that the Klingons are going to be in this season.
Oof.
I mean, it kind of makes sense. We are eventually. I mean, after season two of Discovery, they kind of like just backed off of it. Aside from lower decks, we are going to have to see the Klingons. We are going to have to like get to that point. But here's the interesting thing: they mentioned, at least in the article I read, they mentioned that the Klingons are going to be tied into Mbenga's plotline,
Ooh.
which I guess wonders. Okay, Mbenga has something to do because I was wondering where they're going to go with Mbenga after losing his daughter. And I'm wondering how is this even tied up? Like, was Mbenga in not on the Enterprise during the Klingon War? Is that how his wife died? Was she killed by the Klingons? You know, they had a whole war with the Klingons. You know, we're gonna have to find that out. We're gonna have to find out about, well, again, like, what are the Klingons? Are they gonna look like Discovery Klingons? Are they gonna look like classic Klingons? Are they gonna look like TOS Klingons? Are
Oh.
they gonna have all of them? You know, are they going to be Augment Fires Klingons, or are they going to have like all three of them mixing together? Like I love that little bit in Lower Decks, where in the same scene you see Discovery Klingons and TOS and regular Klingons.
Yes. Yes. I love that too. Again, I wouldn't mind that. I would rather that than like just continually redesign the Klingons. Just have them all around.
Yeah, because you are going to have to like deal with like because everyone's going to ask everyone's going to ask about with the smooth head Klingons,
Yeah.
and you got to address that at some point. But also again, also continuing everything like how deep are they going to be from the Klingons? Are they just going to be like the guys shaking their fists? I have like a couple episodes like that be neat. Or are they going to recast some of the classic Klingons from TOS? Or are they going to be all new characters?
Hmm.
Are we going to see like the Klingon characters? I think there's only one surviving Klingon character from Discovery, like the Empress lady.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess that's the whole question. Is like how deep they're going to go with this because they kind of can't do the Romulans again. They blew this was their one shot at the Romulans because they can't do the Romulans until Balance of Terror proper happens, and then they can probably do the Gorn a couple more times, but after that, it's going to become absurd why Kirk doesn't know anything about them.
I think they. I'd rather them do the Gorn one more like one or two more.
I think they got one or two more shots at the Gorn, and then after that, they got to back off because eventually, again, Kirk had no idea what the word Gorn was. So
I think they have to simply because they have
because
to have.
if Kirk, I can buy that Kirk wasn't the guy who would sit down and read all the logs. I could understand that. Like, but if they run in with the Gorn like at least 6 times, you would probably have run across the file.
Yeah. But also like just to hammer out like the lifeline, because like because even then if you need to like hammer out what the hell is going on because they're like xenomorphs and you can't reconcile that with what you see in arena anyway. You got
Yeah.
I think like one or two more times just see like how their species evolve. Drop it. You can just drop it.
Yeah, and then what else they got to do? I mean, they can't really. I mean, they could probably. Oh, Corby.
Yeah, I feel like
Maybe not go into Corby, but mention his name.
I feel like they could get into Corby like a lot because like
Like have her start to deal with it. Like she clearly didn't fully deal with it,
yes,
but start to like actually say his name. Like just at least just say his name once.
because in the episode, everyone knows, everyone knows it's a touchy subject to with her too. Like it's not a secret, but now
Yeah,
it's a secret.
it's not like how Kirk Uhura didn't know about the Pring.
Exactly. But I think like you think you could have. I feel like you could have like a big couple episode about Corby and it not like
like an episode where she deals with it, but like it's still clearly in her mind.
Yes, but also one where she like kind of like is open to it about with other people.
I guess maybe they could do a Mud episode.
Yeah, let's do a Mud episode.
I mean, what else? Because they can't. They could go into like prequel stuff, but I think they kind of hit the big beats.
Yeah.
Like they can't really do stuff like Q. I mean, especially because Picard closed the door to that. I mean, they could probably follow up some Enterprise stuff. Well, that's an interesting little trivia I found out is that Illyria, one of the Illyrians, the species that number one is, they showed up in Enterprise.
Really?
They were the species that when you get to it in season 3, there's a time when like the Enterprise is pushed to a desperate measures. So the the only way they can go about their mission is to screw over and rob these aliens and take all their stuff, and with no hope of survival. And the people he robs were Illyrians.
Jesus Christ.
I know it's like Enterprise actually does become kind of good later,
Jesus.
but also they look like actual aliens, which kind of enters genetic modifications things.
Hmm. I guess that makes a lot more sense.
Uh,
All
and
right.
then of course the possibility of that Enterprise, like that thing I mentioned, the leaked set photos about the Denobulans. All right, what else do you think they could do season two?
Season two, like I said, I basically what my season two stuff is what I want to see push to focus. You know, like, let's see more of Leon, let's see more of Mbenga, let's see more of Ortega's. Just let's just flesh them out. Ortega's like I don't even know what is Ortega's deal. I don't know anything about her character.
Yeah, oh, yeah, definitely. Like we got to know.
Give them spotlight episodes.
Yeah, and then find out. I don't think they have to explain what happened. I mean, I think they kind of have to explain what happened to number one, but I think it would be fine if like Ortega's didn't die and just went off to another ship.
Yeah,
Although they're gonna have to. How okay are you with if they more recasting? I think the bit with Scotty in this episode was kind of cute, but I think it's fine if they don't bring him in.
I feel like there's still a lot of time to do it. If they wanted to do it, they still have time. They don't have to do it so quickly. But again, if they did like a time skip season, yeah, let's just do it. Let's get all of them. But I feel like right now it would just be a distraction.
Also, especially because I think there's still some people in Paramount who still want to make Star Trek 4 happen, and that would just confuse people too much.
Yeah. But other than that, my only real wish is that don't go into serialization. That would ruin the entire point of this series.
Big adventure. That's the serialized storytelling they're doing. I'm hoping season 5 is going to have 10 episodes. I hope that makes everything tighter because I think I like season 4 a lot, but I think it had a couple episodes too many.
I feel it really did repeat
It
itself
it
many
either
times.
had like season 4 of Discovery, it felt either had too many episodes and not enough. I think if you added more episodes, it could have made things smoother, or if you cut out a few episodes, it would have made things tighter.
Yeah, I feel like you needed to cut down on the Booker stuff because it was so obvious where that was going. You didn't need to show all of it, but
Although I did,
you need to up the ante on the Alien X stuff. Like yeah, it was great when we finally meet them. The entire moment is awesome, but like just could use a little more.
yeah, but but the thing is, like, I think it's. I know some people, don't like that there's like a billion Star Trek shows now, but I think it's fine if you make everything a unique lane.
Exactly.
Like, I think there are a lot of people who don't like Discovery or Picard, and they're not watching them, but they're watching this, and I think that's fine. If you make a show that at least someone likes, like Discovery is the big bombastic episode, Lower Decks is the is the funny one,
Yeah.
Prodigy is it's the entry level show. You have like swashbuckling adventures with. Picard is Picard.
Yeah. It's almost
And
ended. Thank God.
I mean, I have hope because I felt like the season was clearing the deck. I like honestly, I personally really like the ending of with Q. But yeah, I hope this season just kind of makes. I think it's I hope it standardizes where things get good in season 3. Anyway, but like I think every show should be in this separate lane.
Yes, of course.
So like like, oh, I'm gonna stick in this line. I'm like I'm a stranger in world watcher. You know, like I'm watching all the shows, but that's me. So like I think it's fine if some people don't like certain shows and don't watch them. 'Cause I know some people are like watching only the animated or only the live action, or they're just avoiding Prodigy entirely because it's not in their demographic.
Yeah.
I think that's fine. So I think if they try to make Strange New World too much like Discovery, that kind of ruins it all.
Hmm. So like yeah, fingers crossed. But it's a possibility, and we can't wait to see that. But anyway, yes, final thoughts.
I mean, I think it's pretty good. I mean, it's a good start. I Someone brought it up that I don't think if this I think if they started out with this show, it probably wouldn't have been so. I think the reaction to Picard and Discovery helped this a lot, but I think that also helped them learn their lessons. I mean, it's a really solid crew. I hope they get more to do, and just stay the course, but don't rest on your laurels.
Oh yeah, definitely. For me, it's overall like I just want more character substance. Like I think there's definitely some favorites this season, um, and even then, not a lot of them get that much to go through because it's still stuck in prequel mode. But again, some very clever writing can turn that around. I'm not quite sure if this is up to the task. If not, let the secondary characters take the lead.
Although, speaking of, yeah, because I've never heard of this guy Henry Alonzo Myers, because I was a little worried because Kurtzman and Colesman were involved, but it looks like this head writer is this guy Henry Alonzo Myers. Let me see what he's actually done before. Like he's done nothing. Okay, so he's the guy who used to work on Chuck
Hmm.
and the Carrie Diaries and Ugly Betty.
Ooh.
That's a sign that I guess pedigree isn't everything. Sometimes you can just do a good job without having it
Yeah,
built
no,
up.
it was a decent job. Like I wouldn't like if I'd heard that before, I'd be like, no, this series is gonna be shit. But it wasn't bad. It was a little bit unfulfilling, but
Although
not.
one thing that's kind of funny to me, the co-writer of uh, the co-writer of Ghost of Illyria and the Elysium Kingdom is the writer of *Malignant*.
Oh my god.
They should bring that energy, like make just go full *Malignant* with one episode.
Yeah, just I mean, this didn't have like everyone dies episode. Like they need it.
Oh yeah, or oh that's another thing too. So,
Even Prodigy had one. Even Prodigy had one.
yeah, or go crazy with yeah with other stock tropes, like other stock plot lines, like see more alien vistas and whatnot.
Yeah.
Because I I'm not sure if they because Paramount has their own version of the volume now, and I know they use it for Discovery. I'm not sure if they use it for this season though.
I don't know. Maybe in like stuff uh for maybe in stuff like when Hemmer dies, but other than that, they didn't really have too
Yeah,
much
anything.
space outside.
Yeah, because everything's indoors. I mean, although that's the same thing. That is economical Star Trek. Like Star Trek had the thing where they had to introduce Kirk's brother, so they just had Shatner put on a mustache.
Hmm.
So I just kind of, I mean, that is kind of Star Trek when they just are economical that way. Like when they brought in the Monster Maroon from Wrath of Khan, it is clearly just a red. One of the regular costumes dyed a darker red, and they put extra stuff on it.
All right.
I guess, yeah, probably a good place to end this.
Yes. All right. So how much you sign up? Tell them where they can find you.
Well, I'm just on Twitter at Oily Whisper 68. I'm just posting.
All right, and I am Elvis Dutan. You can find me on Twitter at THE_S10ICKMAN, and also on this YouTube channel, Unsourced Wall Radio. Thank you so much for listening, and hope to see you next time. And thank you for coming on and joining me here, Kilo.
Yeah.
All right, have a great one. Bye.
Bye.